Let's talk Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. Hi guys, welcome back, bienvenue, all of that jazz. It's time to talk about books, or specifically a new release coming out on February 14th from Orbit Books, The Age of Ash, book 1 in the Kithamar trilogy by Daniel Abraham. So Daniel Abraham is a very famous author. He's part 1 of the 2-part team, James S.A. Corey, that wrote the Expanse series, and this is his new fantasy series. In a nutshell, we are in this city, Kithamar, following 2 main characters, Alice and Semish, and I don't want to say too much about the plot, but basically it is a very poignant look at grief from 2 different perspectives, the grieving and somebody close to that person as they're going through this trauma in their life. I would say that is the strongest part of this book, is the character work and really these strong underlying themes of grief and what it means to lose somebody, and how the grieving process is not always a pretty process and you can make mistakes, and just it can be a fascinating look, and it is kind of painted on this backdrop that happens to be a fantasy world, but I would say that this story is really rooted in this theme of grief. So that being said, when I'm reviewing books, I mainly look at 3 different aspects. I look at the world building and the magic, the characters, and then the plot. So let's go ahead and jump right into those different criteria, starting with number 1, which is the world building and the magic. And this is one of the weaker points of this story for me. When I read a fantasy book, I really want to be transported to a new world. I want to learn about that world and the magic and how the magic and life are intertwined. And at least in this first book in this new trilogy, you get very little world building. We very rarely see anything outside of the city of Kithamar. We get a couple flashback-ish scenes to a different town, but we really get very little to no information about the world itself. Similarly with the magic, we know very little about the magic, and I don't want to say too much about it, but it has very Dragon Age Origins vibes, which if you know, you know. And if that piques your interest, then check it out. But like I said, the world building and the magic are really minimal. They are not the focus of the story. What is the focus of the story are our 2 characters, Samish and Alice. So these 2 girls grow up together in basically the slummy section of this city, and they grow up basically being street thieves. These thieves are kind of an organized group where you have people that bait the person to get their attention. You have somebody else that like cuts the purse, that then hands it to somebody who's very not like stand outish so that they can sneak into the crowd and get away with it. And so these girls have worked together on many a pull or thief operation. Then Alice, somebody close to her, dies, and that really throws her world into a spin. She is convinced that her brother was murdered, and so she sets off on this mission to find out what happened, and in so doing, steps into things that she has no idea what she's doing, and uncovers the root of what goes on in the city. And I don't want to say any more than that, but it really thrives on looking at the relationship between Samish and Alice and how it changes, and how Alice changes as she goes through the different stages of grief and how she copes with that. And Samish, as a dear friend, she struggles watching her friend go through that and how to do all of that stuff. And it's just a moving and interesting look at stages of grief. So with that, we'll move on to part 3, which is the plot. So like I've said previously, really everything revolves around this central theme of grief. So the plot and the world building and the magic, it's all fairly minimal. The plot is nothing that you necessarily have never seen before. It wasn't the most mind-blowing thing that I've ever read. I did enjoy it. The book was fast-paced enough that I burned through it in a couple days, and I really enjoyed my time with it. But it is not like a new favorite book for me or anything like that. But it did leave me really intrigued to see where this story goes next, because I'm really curious to see the deeper world and learn more about the magic and see more of this magic. because in book one we were so hyper focused on this one city and these two characters. I really want to see how it expands and goes from there. So I will definitely be picking up book two, but I would say that book one is definitely good. I wouldn't say that it's great or amazing or a favorite or anything like that, but I definitely am happy that I read it. And I would say just be ready for a very character-driven story and a very moving look at the stages of grief. And so if that sounds interesting to you, I think you should definitely pick up Age of Ash. If that doesn't sound like your jam, then maybe skip this one. Or if you are currently grieving or anything like that, and that sounds like it might trigger you, then definitely skip this book. But I had a really good time with it, and I'd love it if you're going to pick it up to shout out at me down in the comments. Let me know if you're going to read it, or once you've read it, come back and let me know what you thought. I'd love to chat more about this book. Other than that, please give this video a like if you liked it. If you want to see more bookish stuff like this from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye!